this is my writing kind of template. All right. So one of the things when you write your book, you have to kind of create an outline and you have to start filling things in. So this is what I call a fat outline, which means you just kind of dump all of your information and ideas into this one kind of document. All right. So what you can see is I've actually changed the title to be more kind of attractive. So the original title was Communicate Effectively in Any Language and Get the Most Out of Chinese Cooperation Predictably. So when I wrote this subtitle, I started thinking about, well, who's going to be really interested in reading this book? And I wanted to try to expand the audience. So what I decided to do is I decided to change the subtitle to a quasi-fictional story about the realities of modern Chinese culture on love, relationships, and business. So I'm basing it partially on my own story, but also I'm basing it on things that I read that I'm going to incorporate into. Some of it's going to be fiction. It's not going to be 100% exactly what I did personally. And what I decided to do was I decided to create kind of like a character, like a protagonist that I'm going to take through this story. So I have kind of like a little bit of an intro. I wrote a preface, and what I want to read is just this last line of the preface. Okay, so originally it was almost like a business book that uses my personal relationships, but that's not as interesting if I talk about something more salacious. All right, so what I did is I created a fictional character. His name is Eddie Lee. So instead of my personal story, it's going to be a lot of my experiences, but I'm going to write a kind of a fiction around this character, Eddie Lee. And it's going to be a mixture of, so there's a lot of books on China. So this is going to be a mixture of this book, Richard Berger's book, Behind the Red Door. This talks about sex in China. Okay, so that's going to be something that people who go to Asia for business trips, they're interested in some of this culture that deals with China. And then it's also going to be a cross between this other book, Guanxi, The Art of Relationships, Microsoft, China, and Bill Gates' Plan to Win the Road Ahead. So this is another book. When Bill Gates and Microsoft first entered China, they started talking about Guanxi, and this book was published in 2006. And my book follows a timeline of when I first went to China. So it's 2004. So a lot of the things that they were talking about in this book coincide with my experience. All right. And then what I did is I have this outline. Let's see, the outline. So this is the storyline or the story arc of my book. First one is playing the China game. Second one is mastering your awareness. Third one is aligning on process. Fourth one is winning on what matters. And each one of these sections is going to talk about certain things, but it's also going to coincide with the story arc. So this first section is going to be based on my experience when I first went to China in 2004. This one is going to be based on my next experience starting around 2006. Yes, all through the eyes of Eddie Lee. And then this third one is going to be based on my experiences in 2011. And then this fourth one is going to be based on my experiences of 2015. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take the reader through the story arc of this person who knew nothing about China and then landed in this strange and mysterious place and started encountering all of these different things. And then I'm connecting it with history. So I'm going to be, as I'm talking about each different section and different time periods, I'm going to be connecting what's happening in China in real time. For example, when we get to 2008, then you have the Beijing Olympics or something like that. And then this is the thing that I wanted to share with you. So if you look over here on the outline, each section that you write, you always want to start with kind of like a summary, and then you want to write a one-sentence summary, description, or key takeaway. Like, what do you want your reader to know from this chapter or this section of the book, right? And then you say, what is the story that you want to tell in here? So you have, so for this section, part one, playing the China game, I have the one sentence summary, description, key takeaway. I have what story I'm going to tell. So this is basically it begins with the anticipation in Eddie's mind, sitting in a United Airlines business class window seat on a 24-hour itinerary from JFK to Hong Kong, where he has to transit into Shenzhen and get into mainland China. So I'm telling the firsthand story of Eddie Lee and what he's thinking as he's getting on the plane. And then you have a summary, a description of the key takeaway, and then you have to make your points. What are the things you really want to talk about in each section? So you got point one, story, case study, or evidence. So I have a point. Indirect communication is a hallmark of feeling out relationships that matter in Chinese culture. All right, so I tell the story of what's going on here. Point number two, hierarchy and status fundamentally alter how two people communicate in Chinese culture, whereas it is psychologically awkward when two people are equal and need to find a way forward and agree upon a solution. Because Chinese culture is based on hierarchy. When two people are the same, but they don't have a family relationship, that actually makes it more difficult, because Chinese people are accustomed to either I tell you what to do or you tell me what to do. But for two people to try to find a compromise, that's more difficult. All right. And then so I have the story. And then for each one, I have points. This is a point. Seduction has been an art of war strategy to manipulate foreigners since the Opium Wars. So how do my people who are hosting me in China use the kind of the red light district scene in China to try to lower my guard and curry favors and stuff like that? That's all part of the story that Eddie Lee is going to be going through in China. And this is the template. So in each one of these, you can see each one of these chapters and sections. I have this one sentence summary, story, summary description, points, key takeaways, call to action, and then also you need a hook that kind of leads into the next chapter.